What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the Nissan 300ZX?
A few moments later.
Yes, the 300ZX might bring up mixed emotions. Some love it and some hate it. Some praise its technology and others despise its headaches. But underneath it all, the 300ZX was a top-of-the-line sports coupe with real racing pedigree that just might be the missing JDM Halo car. That's right, you're watching QuattroCam. My name's Alex, and this is everything that made the Nissan 300ZX so special. So that intro had a lot going on, but the story of the Nissan 300ZX can be summed up in 3 chapters. Its tech, its problems, and its legacy. You see, the 300ZX has a special place in JDM history. It was a first in many areas, blazing a trail for many superior JDM sports cars to follow. So why does it have such a polarising reputation? Well, to explain that, we have to start at the beginning. In September of 1983, Nissan unveiled the Z31, the successor to the 280Z. The Z31 was Nissan's path back to the glory days of the platform, increasing power and reducing drag in a more compact package, intended to uphold the sporty spirit of the original Fairlady. The Z31 would also feature Japan's first mass-produced V6 engine, codenamed VG. Well, the VG engine would stick around for over 2 decades, being used from 1983 up until as recently as 2004, and was the predecessor to a modern icon. So the 300ZX sounds like the perfect package, a compact, sleek coupe with a powerful engine. Or should I say engines? You see, this was the first piece of the 300ZX puzzle, its engine. Now the Z31 came with a choice of naturally aspirated or turbocharged V6s. But in 1989, the 300ZX would get an in-house redesign, courtesy of Isaya Sono and Toshio Yamashita. This new car was called the Z32, and along with the exterior changes that we'll get to, Z32 had one key difference under the hood: twin turbos. Yes, the Z32 would feature the VG30 DE-T, 3-litre, dual overhead cam, fuel-injected, twin-turbo machine. Now the Z32 was the very first car to be produced after the famous gentleman's agreement. You see, Japanese cars were getting a bit crazy. They were fast, very fast, and it led to a sharp increase in crashes, and sadly, deaths. To combat this, Japan's automakers sat down and agreed that future cars would be limited to a sensible 276 horsepower from the factory. They all nodded an agreement and left the room. What none of them mentioned was that behind the scenes, their engines would become crazier than ever. Point in case, the Z32's twin-turbo V6. That's right, it might have made a claimed horsepower of between 283 and 300, depending on who you ask, but the engine itself was capable of over 500 horses, bone stock. You see, the way to get around the rule was to just let owners tune the car themselves, and so the Z32's twin-turbo engine, like many of the JDM cars of the time, was massively over-engineered and could put down close to twice its factory power. To top it off, the Z32 was even used as a Bonneville speed car, hitting over 250 miles per hour on a stock body and frame. So highly capable engines from the factory are very happy to be boosted out of their brains, running more pressure than a politician stuck in Jim Carrey's Liar Liar.
Do you regret it all the lying you've done?
Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. Yesterday I went, as we all must, to Peppa Pig World.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
The Z32 had all the right pieces. The puzzle was coming together, sprinkling some racing pedigree, like its wins at Le Mans, Sebring, Daytona, and IMSA. And you have the recipe for an all-time great. So why isn't it? Well, part of it has to do with that engine. You see, Nissan sprinkled it with a fair few cutting-edge bits of kit. The VG30 DE-T is an iron block, aluminium head, twin-turbo, twin intercooled engine with hybrid T22 turbos designed specifically for Nissan. And it had NVTCS, valve timing control system. Basically, a simpler version of Honda's VTEC. So all of this tech was crammed super tight into the front of that compact frame. As a result, the 300ZX was a little tricky to work on. Even harder than working on it was finding somebody else who knew how to, especially today, some 3 decades after its launch. This brings us on to its problems. You see, when it was launched, the twin-turbo Z32 was $30,000, which doesn't sound too bad, but that's $30,000 in 1990s money, back when you can actually buy things for $1. In today's hyperinflated world, that $30,000 would actually cost you $70,000. This made the Z32 incredibly expensive when the dollar crashed against the yen. Just like its rivals, the 3000 GT and Toyota Supra, the 300ZX became an expensive choice with all that tech. Luckily for some owners, the Z32 depreciated pretty hard, with over 90,000 US examples, many multiples more than its competitors. The Z32 had lots of supply, and if I learned anything in my A-level economics class, it's that high supply means low prices. These low prices meant a younger audience could get in on the JDM goodness. Now, as I'm sure most of you are aware, giving a teenager or somebody that's only just legally allowed to buy a beer over 300 horsepower in a rear-wheel drive setup can cause some problems. Spins can happen, crowds will get ran into, these sorts of things. Now the 21-year-old Chad has his JDM car, and he has to maintain it, but he can't find any shops trained to work on it, and he hasn't thought about the costs of maintaining his $70,000 car, which is older than his. This causes many Z32s to be poorly maintained and neglected. And if you think that the engine is the only culprit here, let me introduce you to a friend called Super Highcast. This top-of-the-line rear-wheel steering technology enabled the 300ZX to handle like it was on rails back in the 90s. But after 30 years of neglect, the Highcast system can be very expensive if it goes wrong, with some owners just removing it altogether. So it has some downsides, doesn't every car? But the 300ZX is a truly great platform. If you take a step back and look at it on its merits, you have that immense engine, which might be tough to work on and find parts for, but if you get it right, it's so rewarding. With all its tech, the 300 might be a little heavy, but you could shave some of those pounds off with the right modifications. Remember, this is a Nissan Z car. There's a huge aftermarket presence and a huge community surrounding them. So if you have a 300ZX and you're struggling to work on it, get out into these communities and find the right people to support you. If you can do this, you'll have a few things. A timeless piece of design, not just a JDM one. Across the board, you'll be hard-pressed to find anybody that doesn't appreciate the styling of the 300ZX. Pair that with its healthy stock power, a large aftermarket community, and a rare appeal compared to some other cars of the same era, and you just might have found a hidden JDM Halo car for yourself. And one final thing you would have found is you wouldn't be one of the 8 billion people that wants a GTR or a Super or an RX-7. Be different, be unique. There are tons of hidden JDM gems if you just go out there and look for them. And if you need a helping hand, don't worry, we have you covered. Our JDM Hidden Gems series is in the works. You won't want to miss it. But in the meantime, what car should we cover next? We have looked at the Evo and WRX in these videos to my right. Where do we go from here? Let us know in the comments. Isaiah Sono and Toshio Yamashita. Courtesy of Isaiah Sono and Toshio Yamashita. Isaiah Sono and Toshio Yamashita. But when it is in the scene, I can't get it right numerous times. Okay.